Hi, I'm Shaun Tomson, and I wanted to give you a basic explanation of the characteristics of modern surfboards. Also, if you want more detail, I do have an iPhone application. It's just called Surfboards. It's available on iTunes, and that gives you a really detailed explanation. But there's basically two types of surfboards in the world today. One is a longboard, and one is a shortboard. Sure, there are other boards called hybrids, which are a combination of the two, but those are the two basic boards. So if you're starting out on the surfing journey, definitely get a longboard. A longboard is generally a board that is 9 foot over in length. Now, how does one measure the length of a surfboard? The length of a board is measured from the tip, which is the nose, to the tail. So from the very tip to the tail, and the length is measured upside down. That's just the way the shapers measure it when they shape a surfboard. Then you have the width. So the width of the surfboard from one rail to another. The width is measured at the widest point of a board. So even if at the center the board is 19 inches wide and 3 inches up, it might be 19 1/4 wide, the board is referred to as 19 1/4 in width. Front part of the board is called the nose. The rear part of the board is called the tail. So you've got the nose, the tail, the rails, the fins. Back in the old days we used to call these skegs, so that's your fins, your fin box. The centerpiece of wood in the board, which 90% of boards have, is called the stringer. That's the wood that actually strengthens the surfboard because the polyurethane foam core is rather weak. You have often a tail patch on a board. A lot of the young guys will use a tail patch for traction and also enables them to do these high-flying aerials. So that's really it in terms of what a board's about. Then, most importantly, you have the shape of the board. So this board is shaped pretty much like a traditional longboard. Even though it's a short board, it only measures 6 foot in length. It's shaped like a traditional longboard. That is, it's got a wide nose, a rounded nose, and it has this wideish square tail. Another important part of the shape is what us surfers call rocker. So that is the bend in the board. So rocker is usually measured with a straight piece of wood. You'll measure the tail rocker and you'll measure the nose rocker. But these specifics aren't that important when you're starting out. But rocker does refer to the curve in the board. Then the rails, which are the side of the board, vary in the nose and they vary in the tail. In the tail, they're much sharper, they're much thinner. Surfers, we call this a down rail, and the rail has an edge usually running along it. So it really releases and gives you a lot of speed when you do your maneuvers. Now you can see the difference in the shapes of these two boards. So this is sort of a beginner shape and this is a high performance shape. You can immediately see the nose is a lot more pointy, the board itself is a lot narrower, and the board is also a lot thinner. So the thickness of a board is measured at the thickest point from the bottom through to the top in a theoretical straight line. So my boards are in the 2.5 inch range, but if you're starting out, you definitely want something in the 2.5 to 3 inch range, because the thicker the board, the more volume, the easier it's going to float, the easier you're going to be able to catch waves, and the easier you are going to be able to stand up and actually ride those waves. This board has what is referred to as a square tail. This board, my warp design, is what's called a swallowtail. So what this tail does, it actually reduces the tail area, makes the board sit a little bit lower in the water, and enables you to do really hard turns. This board is made for a carving style of surfing. It also has a single wing configuration, these little cuts in the outline of the board, which is the shape of the board. It's called the outline as well. I'll also reduce the area in the tail here and enable you to really power hard off the bottom without spinning out, because the wider the tail, the more unstable the board can be. Also, you'll see this board has a lot more rocker than than the beginner style board. Also, another important configuration on boards is what us surfers call the bottom of the board. So the bottom refers to how the board is shaped from rail to rail. What's popular today is what's called a concave. Concaves are very important because they give you lift and they're incredibly fast. So this board has a design called a single concave, which blends down to a double concave. So on each side of the stringer you'll have a concave, and then it blends down to a V bottom. So the V bottom is for releasing the board up on the rail, and the concave is for lift and speed. So surfboards are very, very sophisticated from a design perspective. Many of these are cut on CNC machines, and they all made specifically for a surfer's requirements. But if you're going to be starting out on the surf journey, you want something that is going to float you, you want something with a wide round nose, and you want something that is really easy to paddle. So that's it from me, Shaun Tomson, on the basics of the surfboard.